The fog was so thick that night it felt like driving through a ghost. Streetlights barely pierced the gloom, and the high beams from Christine Holloway's car only made the swirling mist more impenetrable. It had been a long day at work, and all she wanted was to get home, kick off her heels, and collapse onto her couch with a glass of wine. The quiet hum of the engine and the rhythmic thump of her windshield wipers provided a small sense of comfort as she navigated the winding back roads toward her suburban home. She had always preferred these roads over the congested highways, but tonight they felt different, eerie, almost alive. As she turned onto a particularly desolate stretch, a shiver ran down her spine. She glanced into the rearview mirror, and for the briefest moment, she thought she saw something, someone, shifting in the shadows of her back seat. Her heart skipped a beat, and she immediately hit the brakes, her car jerking to a stop in the middle of the road. She turned in her seat, her eyes scanning the back, her breath shallow. Nothing. The back seat was empty, just as it had been when she left work. She exhaled, laughing nervously. "Get a grip, Christine. You're just tired." Shaking her head, she put the car back in gear and continued driving, though her hands gripped the steering wheel tighter now. The fog seemed to thicken as she pressed on, the road ahead disappearing into an endless gray void. The trees on either side of the road loomed like silent sentinels, their twisted branches reaching out toward the car. Every few minutes, she glanced into the rearview mirror, half expecting to see a face staring back at her. There was nothing, but the sense of unease gnawed at her. She couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. The first sound was faint, a soft creak, like leather shifting under weight. Christine froze, her knuckles whitening on the wheel. She strained her ears, her pulse quickening. The sound came again, this time louder. It was coming from the back seat. Her breath caught in her throat as her mind raced. Could someone have gotten into the car? But how? She'd locked it, hadn't she? Fighting the rising panic, she reached for her phone, her fingers trembling as she fumbled to unlock it. Before she could dial, a voice, low, raspy, and chillingly calm, spoke from the darkness behind her. "Don't stop the car!" Christine screamed, dropping her phone onto the passenger seat. The car swerved as she fought to regain control, her mind spinning. The voice hadn't been her imagination. Someone was in the car. "I said, don't stop," the voice repeated, colder this time. She wanted to turn around to see his face, but fear rooted her in place. She kept her eyes on the road, her breathing shallow. What do you want?" she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "You'll find out soon enough," the man replied. Christine's thoughts raced. Could she make a run for it, pull over and throw herself out of the car? But the fog was so thick and the road so deserted, there was no telling what might happen. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat, the screen lighting up with a call from her best friend. She wanted to reach for it, but the man's voice cut through the silence. "Don't even think about it." Tears welled in her eyes as she gripped the steering wheel tighter, her mind screaming for a way out. The road ahead seemed endless, the fog swallowing everything beyond the headlights. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice trembling. The man didn't answer. Minutes felt like hours as the tension in the car grew unbearable. Christine's thoughts turned to her family, her friends. Would anyone know what happened to her if this was the end? Finally, she saw it, a faint glow through the fog. A gas station. It was her only chance. Without warning, Christine slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a stop. She flung the door open and bolted into the night, screaming for help. Her shoes slipped on the wet pavement as she ran toward the light, her heart pounding. She didn't dare look back, terrified of what she might see. But when she reached the gas station, it was empty. The lights flickered and the door was locked. She turned, her eyes scanning the fog, but the man was nowhere to be seen. Her car was still idling in the distance, the driver's door hanging open. The next morning, a passing truck driver spotted Christine's car, abandoned on the side of the road. The inside of the windows were smeared with bloody handprints, as if someone had been clawing at the glass. Christine was gone. Despite an extensive search, no trace of her was ever found. Her disappearance became a local legend, a warning whispered among late-night drivers about the dangers of foggy back roads. Some said the man had been a hitchhiker she picked up. Others believed he was never truly human at all. And on especially foggy nights, some swear they've seen her car, its headlights cutting through the mist, a shadowy figure sitting silently in the back seat. The end. Let me know what you think.